The moment of death. The ancient Egyptians believed death split a person into 5 distinct parts. Not a soul, 5. The Ba, your personality, the Ka, your life force, the Ib, your heart, the Ren, your true name, the Shout, your shadow. Every single one had to survive the journey intact. Lose one, and you ceased to exist, not just in the afterlife, but in all of existence forever. The moment the body stopped breathing, the Ba left through the mouth as a human-headed bird. It could travel freely between the world of the living and the Duat, the Egyptian underworld, but only if the physical body was preserved. This is why mummification wasn't a burial ritual. It was a survival strategy. Without a preserved body, the Ba had nowhere to return to. Decompose the corpse, and you destroy the soul's anchor. The family had exactly 70 days. The opening of the mouth. Before the journey even started, a priest performed a ceremony called the opening of the mouth. This ritual used a curved iron blade called a peseshkef to symbolically restore all 5 senses to the mummy. Touch the blade to the lips, speech returns. Touch the eyes, sight returns. 70 tools were used in the full ceremony, each restoring a different function. Without this ritual, the dead couldn't speak inside the Duat. And speaking, knowing the right words, the right spells, the right names, was the only weapon you had. The Book of the Dead wasn't a book of prayers, it was a cheat sheet. A manual of 192 spells written on papyrus scrolls and buried with the body. Wealthy Egyptians paid scribes enormous sums to customize their copy. Poor families got mass-produced generic versions. Either way, you needed it. The first gate, the guardian Amenti. The Duat had 12 gates, each guarded by a massive serpent deity. The first gate was protected by Amenti, a towering cobra wrapped in flame. To pass, you had to speak the serpent's secret name out loud. Not a title, the actual hidden name, specific syllables inscribed only in your tomb. Get it wrong, and the serpent didn't just block you, it incinerated your Ba on the spot. This is why tomb vandalism was considered one of the worst crimes in ancient Egypt. Destroy someone's tomb, and you destroy the passwords they need to survive. Theft wasn't the main concern. The erasure of the dead was. Gates 2 through 11 followed the same pattern. Each serpent, each name, each challenge more complex than the last. The texts of the Duat, a royal funerary text inscribed in the Valley of the Kings as early as 1550 BCE, described all 12 hours of the night in granular detail. Pharaohs memorized sections of it before they died. The Lake of Fire. Deep inside the Duat lay a lake that burned continuously with orange and blue fire. The Lekhet, as it was called, served 2 opposite functions simultaneously. For gods and the righteous dead, it provided nourishment, a regenerative flame that restored strength for the journey ahead. For the wicked, it destroyed them instantly. There were 4 baboon-headed guardians stationed at the lake's edges, armed with torches. Their job was to sort the arrivals. No trial, no arguments. The flame itself reacted, harmless to the pure, lethal to the corrupt. Here's what made this terrifying. Corruption wasn't just moral, it was ritual. Miss enough offerings? Let your tomb fall into disrepair? Have your name chipped off a wall by enemies? Your Ka weakened, and a weakened Ka couldn't survive the fire, regardless of how virtuous you'd been in life. The Cavern of Sokar. Past the lake sat the domain of Sokar, god of the dead, before Osiris absorbed his role around 2100 BCE. This cavern was described in the Duat as a region of absolute darkness, so dense that even Ra's solar boat, traveling through the underworld every night to be reborn at dawn, slowed to a near stop. Inside the cavern lived Apep, a serpent so vast its coiled body filled the entire passage, hundreds of meters of scales, no eyes, no ears, and a hunger that targeted light itself. Every single night, Ra's boat crew fought Apep with spears and magic words, cutting the serpent back to allow the sun to rise. Some nights the battle was close. Solar eclipses in Egyptian theology were moments when Apep was winning. The dead had to pass through this same darkness, alone, without Ra's crew. Spell 39 of the Book of the Dead was specifically written for this encounter. Egyptologists found it in tombs dating back to 2400 BCE. The Negative Confession. 42 gods stood in a row in the Hall of Two Truths, each one assigned a specific sin: lying, stealing, murder, adultery, disrupting the flow of water, making someone weep. The list was exhaustive. The dead person had to address each god directly, deny each specific sin by name, 42 denials in total. Not a vague "I lived well," a specific itemized declaration: I did not steal grain, I did not falsify the scales, I did not speak ill of the king. This was called the negative confession. It had nothing to do with confession in the Christian sense. It was a legal proceeding, oral testimony before a divine court, and the 42 gods were the jury. They already knew the truth. The confession was a test of honesty under pressure. But the real judgment came after. The Weighing of the Heart. Anubis, the jackal-headed god of mummification, took the heart, the ib, from the chest cavity and placed it on a golden scale. On the other side, a single white feather, the feather of Ma'at, goddess of truth and cosmic order. If the heart balanced perfectly with the feather, the soul passed. If the heart was heavier, burdened by sin, dishonesty, cruelty, Anubis tipped the scale, and a creature standing beside it consumed the heart immediately. That creature was Ammit, part lion, part hippopotamus, part crocodile. She was called the Devourer. She didn't kill the soul she ate, she erased it. Permanent non-existence, a fate the Egyptians considered far worse than death. They even had a word for it: the second death. Thoth, the ibis-headed god of writing, stood nearby recording every verdict on a scroll. 42 gods watching, the feather unmoving. Most Egyptians spent their entire lives trying to keep their hearts light. The Field of Reeds. Past the scale and you arrived at Aru, the Field of Reeds, Egyptian paradise. An idealized mirror of the Nile Delta, green fields, canals full of water, unlimited grain, the same house you had in life, the same family waiting. The Egyptians didn't envision heaven as clouds and music. They envisioned it as Egypt, but perfect. No floods that destroyed your crops, no disease, no tax collectors. There was one catch. You still had to work. Fields needed tending, canals needed digging. The gods assigned labor quotas. This is why wealthy Egyptians were buried with small clay figurines called shabtis, up to 401 of them, one for each day of the year, plus a foreman for every 10 workers. When the gods called your name for a labor assignment, the shabti answered instead, "I am here, I will do it." The wealthier you were, the more shabtis you had. King Tutankhamun was buried with 413. Aru wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new existence that could last millions of years. Union with Ra. The highest achievement in the Egyptian afterlife wasn't staying in the Field of Reeds. It was merging with Ra. Every night, Ra's solar boat descended into the Duat. Every morning, it rose at dawn, reborn. The most spiritually perfected souls could join that boat, becoming part of Ra's eternal cycle, traveling through death and rebirth endlessly alongside the sun god himself. This state was called Aku, the Shining One. And Ak wasn't a ghost or a spirit. It was a transformed being, fully merged with divine light, beyond the reach of Ammit, beyond the need for offerings, beyond the second death entirely. Achieving Ak status required a lifetime of religious devotion, ethical conduct, and, critically, enough wealth to afford proper burial, the right spells, and an intact tomb. Poverty wasn't just uncomfortable in ancient Egypt, it was spiritually dangerous.
What happened if you failed? Most people never reached the field of reeds. The obstacles were too many, the knowledge required too specific, the resources too expensive. Souls that failed the weighing were consumed by Ammit and simply stopped existing. Souls that ran out of strength, Ka depleted by neglect, wandered the desert regions of the Duat as shadows. Souls that couldn't answer the gate guardians were turned back and dissolved. The Egyptians had a category for this, the Mut, the truly dead. No resurrection, no second chance, complete and total erasure from the cosmic record. This is why the worst punishment an Egyptian pharaoh could impose wasn't execution. It was damnatio memoriae, the systematic destruction of a person's name and image from every surface. Chisel the name off every wall, smash every statue, burn every record. Destroy the Ren, and you destroyed the person's ability to exist in any form, in any world, forever. Egyptians didn't fear death, they feared being forgotten.
If you like this video, subscribe for similar ones, or leave a comment to suggest another.